maybe or maybe not at all opposite to that, because sometimes I think that a lot of the debates in European Parliament and other parliamentary assemblies are about hindering the development, saying it is in order to defend the consumers. And you know, in order to defend the consumers, you can stop everything. You know, I think this issue which we're talking about now is rather more falling under the what I have in my private research lab at home. In the Department of Economic History, come to the conclusion that everything is moving and changing in eras of 30 years. Because that is the time when the change is coming through. My standard way of describing this is the electric bulb. It took 30 years after Thomas Alva Edison invented the electric bulb until people started to turn the lights downwards. Because the mindset, candle lights pointing upwards, was so strong. The first automobiles, they looked like hose carriages. And even if you look at the laptops, they looked like typewriters until we had the tablets. And this is a very new thing. And you know, 30 years ago, what did we do then? Then we launched the single market. And that was mainly for goods and for people, and to some extent for services. And now, suddenly, people are starting to move and living in different countries. But another thing is that we have achieved a lot for a single market regarding the traditional thing, which is most easy to think about, that's goods. But in reality, the European economy is developing extremely rapid into a service economy. When I talk with all modern companies, Ericsson was mentioned here earlier, they are not defining themselves as an industrial company anymore. They are a service company. And this means that the more we are entering the service economy, we are growing out of the single market, so to say. That's not the total truth, because, but more or less, it's rather true. It's very true. It's 80% true. And the more important the service economy is getting, the more we are facing the problems of yours, but also of copyright, intellectual rights, digital economy, and all these things that are the service economy's standards and characters. So in that sense, we are now in the 30-year crisis, so to say. Quite good, 85 and a single market, and everyone applauded a strong idea. And now we're trying to enter the next one. And the problem with the next phase is that when you are dealing with the economy and the market of services, you're hitting much, much more the local issues, which you are entering into, copyright tradition or patent and some digital economy. And Europe is full of kingdoms, of national regulators wanting to have national regulation. I think, Pascal Lamy, when you did your report, you faced that, but you also faced the kingdoms of national broadcasters, which are living in the belief that we can come out of the crisis by looking at TV. and I can tell you that is not the case. So we, in some way, we need to adopt that we are, in this sense, in a 30-year crisis and need to take a new start. And one thing that is making me worried, I'm not against it, but I'm concerned, because as soon as we want to develop the internal market, we are nowadays tending to say that we need to launch a new union. Capital Markets Union, or Energy Union, or Digital Union. Soon someone will launch a new European Union. Because this is a way of avoiding the conflicts for opening up the market. And I think it's good to have an energy union as long as it's about opening up the market. But it's a way of avoiding opening up the market, and instead of having some sort of political overbuild, then we are in a problem. And I think we need to understand that now we are living in a new time with a new logic, but we need to adopt the ideas of the 5 freedoms into that.
I wish I had a neat answer to that. I do think, without going too much into kind of interinstitutional fights in Brussels, I do think that in many circumstances the European Parliament remain in this sense, together partly with the Commission, good guys. In the sense they try to see Europe-wide solutions to European problems. Take the issue of data protection and the data protection regulation, for example. You may in the room quibble with whether what's in that is a good thing or not, but nevertheless there has been a determined effort to deal with European data protection law, spearheaded initially by the European Commission and very solidly backed by the European Parliament. Progress has not been made there because of objection from a number of member states in the Council. So at least if there are efforts in a practical sense to come up with practical solutions to these problems, I think on energy issues, the energy union issues, again, I think the same could probably be said. So I think that's one grounds for some optimism is at least that the European Parliament, in at least the practical aspects of protecting some of these freedoms, does make some practical steps forward. I'm also interested by the extent to which, and this is maybe again an institutional point, what happens to the things which did exist and did work and are called into question? So for example, Schengen cracking at the edges. What do you do about that? What happens if you have come across, it's still not solved, issue of non-Italian academics being denied certain labour rights in Italian universities, for example? What are the ways and means that as an individual citizen who cannot get your rights respected in the European Union, to find a way and means of actually managing to make that happen? My own experience trying to deal with that is extremely difficult. The European Commission sends me a polite letter every time telling me why they can't act. Quite often when I've acted your eyewitness evidence to disprove exactly what they're telling me. So we need to find ways and means of managing to make sure that the connection is from Brussels directly out into the member states more deeply, in order to manage to make sure that what we've got is actually at least protected. So I think that those are two aspects I see. So I still think that give the European Parliament some political unity and a good rapporteur on an individual issue. And I think the data protection example shows quite well that the European Parliament can drive practical change forward. Not in a big splashy way, but at least in a slow, decent, sensible, incremental way in order to protect this freedom.